Questions for this witness?
Yes, I do. First of all, good morning.
Good morning.
And happy birthday.
Thank you.
You stated that you were hanging out with your friend Miss Corey on the day of this incident, correct?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that you were hanging out drinking?
Yes.
Would it also be fair to say that you occasionally drink too much?
Objection, Roberts.
Sustained.
Would it be fair to say that, well, let me back up. What were you drinking?
A Mike's Hard beverage.
Were you aware that it was said that you were actually drinking vodka?
No.
Objection.
Hold on. When there's an objection, I need to rule on it first, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Sustained that mischaracterizes the previous testimony. Next question.
So it would be fair to say that you were drinking.
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that you were a little intoxicated?
I was not.
How much did you drink that day?
1 of the Mike's Hard alcohol beverage.
And around what time of the day was that?
I don't remember.
Was it shortly before meeting up with the alleged defendant, or was it sometime before?
It was before.
Did you have anything to drink after?
No, I did not.
You stated that you were engaging in a conversation with the alleged defendant via the telephone. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Texts, phone calls?
Yes.
Were those texts and phone calls of what nature were they of?
Me and Mr. Brooks were arguing throughout the day.
In the texts and phone calls?
Yes, we were.
If the conversation was argumentative, why would you agree to meet up with the alleged defendant?
I do not know.
Do you recall how the meetup was supposed to be set up?
I don't recall.
Did you at any time ask the alleged defendant to meet up with you?
Well, I told Mr. Brooks where I was.
Did you at any time ask to meet up with the alleged defendant?
No, I did not.
So it would be fair to say that the alleged defendant just came where you were?
Yes, I told you where we were. And obviously, we were going to hang out. I never told Mr. Brooks to hang out with me. I told him where we were.
So why would, if there was an argumentative conversation prior to you meeting up with the alleged defendant, why would you tell the alleged defendant where you were?
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
You just stated that you really don't know the city of Waukesha. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
So how would you know exactly where you were?
Because I was with Corey and she's familiar with this area.
Would it be fair to say that Corey overheard these conversations between you and the alleged defendant?
Yes, she was my roommate. She heard every conversation almost.
When you say every conversation, what would that refer to?
When she was in the room with me, when I was always talking to her.
So it would be fair to say that you were engaged in conversation with the alleged defendant before you even left the women's shelter?
Yes.
And those argumentative conversations continue into your hanging out?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that that's what led you to drink?
No.
Would it be fair to say you were drinking because that's what you wanted to do?
Yes.
Is it true that one of the rules and requirements of being at the women's shelter is no drugs and no alcohol? Would that be fair to say?
Yes, but when I was drinking, it was at Frame Park. I was not at the women's shelter.
Would it be fair to say that you knew you had to come back into the women's shelter at some point that day, that they have a curfew?
Yes. And I made it before curfew.
Let me back up a little bit. You did state that part of the rules and requirements for being in the women's shelter is no drugs and no alcohol, correct?
Yes, it was not in the women's shelter.
That's not what I'm asking. It's part of the requirement and rules of the women's shelter, no drugs, no alcohol.
I'll
Yes.
object, asked and answered twice.
Sustained. Next question, Mr. Brooks.
Is there any type of drug and alcohol testing at the women's shelter?
I don't know. No.
No, or you don't know?
I don't know.
Would it be fair to say that if it was found that you were engaging in drugs and alcohol, that you might have lost your place at the women's shelter?
I'll object. I don't see how this is relevant.
Sustained. Next question.
So around what time were you hanging out with Miss Corey, you said?
I don't remember.
Do you remember where you were at?
Frame Park.
Do you remember where in Frame Park?
No.
And approximately at what time did you meet up with the alleged defendant?
I don't remember.
How long were you with the alleged defendant? Do you remember that?
Approximately 35 minutes.
Do you recall what? Well, you said that during this time you were with the alleged defendant that there was a arguing going on. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Do you remember what that argument was about?
He was arguing with me about money because I did not bail him out.
You also said that well, let me back up from that a little bit. If you knew that the conversation was becoming volatile, why did you still meet up with the alleged defendant?
I don't know.
To your knowledge, did the alleged defendant know anything about the city of Waukesha?
Yes.
And what did the alleged defendant know about Waukesha?
He told me, Mr. Brooks told me that his first child's mother lives in Waukesha.
Do you know that to be a fact?
No, that's just what Mr. Brooks told me.
Are you aware that the alleged defendant in fact has no mother of any child that lives in the city of Waukesha?
Objection. If Mr. Brooks wants to testify, he should do so in a different stage of the trial.
Sustained. You don't need to answer that.
Yes, ma'am.
Other than what you can recall about what the alleged defendant told you that they knew about Waukesha, how did the alleged defendant meet up with you in the location that you gave?
Mr. Brooks already knew where Frame Park was. Mr. Brooks previously had been to Waukesha plenty of times before. He's told me that.
And when was that told to you, and what conversation? Was it that day?
Before that, I'm not sure which day it was. I just know he knows about Waukesha.
So would it be fair to say that when you told the alleged defendant where you were, that the alleged defendant knew exactly where you were?
Yes.
And how would the alleged defendant know that?
Because Mr. Brooks already knew Waukesha. He knew exactly where to go.
Did you at any time give directions where you may have been?
How could I give directions when I barely knew Waukesha myself?
Is that a no?
That's a no, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
So, if you barely knew Waukesha yourself, where did you get the information of where you were from, where you were at the time of the conversation via telephone?
I left the women's shelter with Corey, and she knows that location. She told me what Frame Park was. I didn't know the name.
And would it be fair to say, assuming from what you just said, that you were with the alleged defendant for approximately around 30 minutes or so?
Yes.
And during that time, did you make any disparaging remarks or anything to entice the argument to escalate?
No.
So you didn't say anything at all during your 30 minutes with the alleged defendant?
No, because I was crying the whole time because Mr. Brooks was yelling at me, arguing with me.
So you said absolutely nothing at all?
I was crying the whole time.
Did you say anything?
No.
A few more.
No.
A few more questions.
Go ahead.
You said that during this, well, once you had got out of the vehicle, as you say, you stated that your friend Miss Corey pulled you away from the vehicle because it swerved.
Yes, it was in the video.
You do know that we just saw the video. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, but there's two angles of the video.
Well, we only saw one, so I'm referring to the video that we saw.
Corey pulled me out the way when Mr. Brooks made a U-turn, and you almost swerved into Miss Patterson, which is me.
Would it be fair to say that the video does not show that?
There's different angles, but the video does not show that, the video we watched.
So the video that we just watched, that the jury just saw, there is no swerving of the vehicle and you being pulled back. Would that be fair to say?
From the far angle, you can kind of see it. Yes.
Would that be fair to say? That
You
there's,
answered the question, Mr. Brooks. Next question. Under 906.11, sub 1, sub C, I direct your attention to that next question.
do you recall what was said during the altercation between is it Miss Corey and the alleged defendant?
No, I don't remember.
Would it be fair to say that you were standing right there?
Yes, I just don't remember what was being said.
Do you recall reporting anything that may have been said during that incident?
No.
Did you give a statement to anything that may have been said during that incident?
No.
Was anything directed towards you verbally in that incident?
Yes. Corey told Mr. Brooks, don't ever hit my effing friend again. I remember that part. That was in the beginning.
Do you remember anything else that may have been said?
No.
Do you recall anything being said by Nick to the alleged defendant?
No.
Do you recall the alleged defendant saying anything to Nick?
No. I don't remember.
You also stated that right after this incident, you talked to law enforcement. Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
At any time, did you report any abuse?
Yes.
And what did you report?
That you hit me?
And you gave a statement to that effect?
No, not to that police officer, but the detectives at the women's shelter.
Well, I'm referring to right during, well,
I don't
directly
remember.
after the incident.
I don't remember what I told that police officer.
Just one quick second. I'm reading from the statement, if I may.
You may.
Do you remember what was said by the alleged defendant when that incident ended?
No, I do not remember.
Do you remember reporting in your statement that the last thing he said to me was F-U-B, erase my number? Do you remember that?
I don't remember.
Would it be fair to say that you reported that this was said?
I don't remember.
Do you remember giving a statement to that effect?
No.
Would it be fair to say that you gave a statement?
No, I don't remember. I gave a statement to the detectives at the women's center.
So
That's
would
what
it
I
be
remember.
fair? I'm sorry, I didn't know if you...
You done answering?
Yes.
All right, next question.
Would it be fair to say that your memory is kind of cloudy of that day because you were intoxicated?
No.
There's a lot of things in this statement that you don't seem to remember. Is that fair to say?
Objection, that's argumentative.
Sustained. Next question.
Would it be fair to say that you reported two different incidents?
Yes.
Do you remember the dates of those incidents that you
The
reported?
20th and the 21st.
Would it be fair to say that there was no incident on the 20th?
No.
Would it be fair to say that you were initially not truthful with law enforcement?
No.
Do you recall making a statement to law enforcement on November the 22nd of 2021?
I don't remember. I made this statement on the 21st of the day of the parade when I met the detectives that night.
Do you recall making a second statement the next day? Or the next morning, rather, which would have been the 22nd of November, 2021?
Yes, I did actually. Yes, I did.
Do you recall what you reported that day?
I told them about the 20th when I met with Mr. Brooks, and all we did was argue. And you hit me then too.
So you reported incidents for 2 days in a row.
Yes.
Do you recall at any time telling law enforcement that you were not truthful and wanted to be truthful at that point?
No.
So you never made a statement to your knowledge that you fabricated a reported abuse incident?
No.
One second here, I'm reading from that. To the best of your knowledge, do you remember talking with a detective? I don't want to butcher this name, Your Honor. I don't know how to pronounce it.
You can spell it if that's helpful.
A detective, Behrendt.
Detective Barrett? Is it a detective or an officer?
It says detective, Your Honor.
Okay, ask your question.
Do you remember speaking with that detective?
Yes.
Do you remember what you reported to that detective?
I don't remember.
I'm reading directly from the statement, Your Honor, if I may.
Ask your question.
Do you remember reporting to that detective saying you were not completely forthright with all of the information that you had given because you were afraid to get other people involved in your drama or your business?
I don't remember that.
And I'll object and move to strike based on the fact that I think I'm safe in saying that that is not from the report which the defendant is referring to.
The objection is sustained. I'll grant the motion to strike by the state of the question and any response that may have been elicited before I address the objection.
Your Honor, quick question on that. I'm reading directly from the report.
Next question, Mr. Brooks.
Just 1 second, Your Honor.
Okay.
I apologize for that, Your Honor. Do you remember at any time speaking with Officer Guth?
Yes.
And do you recall on what date that was?
November 21st.
Do you remember what you reported on November the 21st?
That me and Mr. Brooks, I met with Mr. Brooks at Frame Park. Me and Mr. Brooks got into an altercation. You hit me. I jumped out of your car and I walked and met my friend Corey. You followed me. And then after that, Nick and Miss Corey, they called the police officers. And then you drove off.
Just 1 second, Your Honor. Do you recall reporting to Officer Guth that you were not completely forthright with the information that you reported?
I don't remember. And no, actually, no, I did not say that. I apologize.
So reading from what was reported to Officer Guth states that what I learned from Erica Patterson was that when I spoke to her on the previous evening with Officer Garrett, was that the pronunciation, Your Honor? I'm sorry.
I don't have it in front of me, I'm not sure.
She was not completely forthright with all of the information she had given. Would that be fair to say?
What was your question?
Do you recall in your reporting to Officer Guth that you were not forthright with the information that you gave?
No, I don't recall that.
So to the best of your recollection, at any time that you reported incidents to any law enforcement, at any time do you recall being untruthful?
No.
So do you remember the date and time of the first incident that you allege?
I don't remember the time, but it was November 20th.
Do you remember what time of day that may have been?
I just said I don't remember.
Do you remember where you were at?
Brain Park.
So would it be fair to say that both alleged incidents that you are alleging happened at Frame Park?
The second incident on November 21st did not happen on Frame Park. We were driving around and he hit me.
What
The
I'm
first
asking
incident.
is where you were at when you met up.
Frame Park, yes. That's
On
not
both-
what you
on both
just
alleged
said.
occasions?
Yes. That's how Mr. Brooks knew where Frame Park is. He already knew Waukesha area in the first place.
Same park.
Yes.
Do you remember where you were at in Frame Park?
No, it was in the parking lot. The first side of the parking lot. Kind of by the baseball field, I think that is. If that is the baseball field.
Do you recall who you were with?
Nobody. I was with Corey on November 21st, and the first day on November 20th, I was by myself.
So it would be fair to say that you went to the park alone.
Yes. I met up with Mr. Brooks intentionally on the 20th. Yes.
Were you drinking that day?
No.
And how did you know how to get to Frame Park, as you call it?
I knew how to get to Frame Park 'cause I'd been the previous times before that with Miss Corey. Walking past it. I knew how to get there because Corey walked with me that day too. I just was not with her. She walked towards there with me.
And so then you separated?
Yes.
Did you separate from Miss Corey at any time during the 21st?
Yes, I did. She left with Nick and I was with Mr. Darrell Brooks.
Do you recall to the best of your knowledge that it may have been someone else that she was with, that was with you that day?
She was by which day? Are you clarifying? Which day?
November the 21st of 2021.
She was with Nick that day.
The entire day?
Yes.
And you guys separated from that point?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say you guys separated after hanging out and drinking?
Mr. Brooks, under 906.11, sub 1, sub C, you need to move on to a new topic. You've been over this multiple times. It's been asked, it's been answered, and now it's under my authority under 906.11, sub 1, sub C, you need to move on.
So to the best of your knowledge, well, let me back up. How did you communicate with the alleged defendant on November 20th of 2021?
Phone phone calls,
Strictly phone calls, texts?
both. Mostly phone calls.
Do you remember what was said in those texts and phone
Same
calls?
conversation we had on the 21st. He was mad because I wasn't giving him money from not bailing him out.
So why would you meet up with the alleged defendant that day?
Because I just wanted to. We have a 15-year-old together. I mean, I was always going to talk to you then.
Do you remember if there was any agreed upon meeting up that day?
Yes,
By you, by the alleged defendant?
both.
Do you remember the reason why you were meeting up?
I just said why.
So it would have been just to conversate,
Just to conversate.
would it be fair to say that you could have communicated strictly by the phone?
Yes.
Objection.
Under 906, 11 sub 1 sub C, the objection is sustained. Next topic, if you have one, Mr. Brooks.
You said that you came to Wisconsin from another state. Would that be fair to say?
Atlanta, Georgia, yes. June 13th, 2021.
And why did you leave Georgia?
We were coming out here for 2 weeks, and I never went back.
Can you state why you never went back?
Number one, I came out here, I didn't have money. Number two, I had no way to get back. And you were always, Mr. Brooks was always physical.
So at any time were you ever offered money to go back to Georgia, or did anybody at any time ever?
No.
Did anybody at any time ever lend any help to help you go back to Georgia?
No.
Did you, to the best of your recollection, did you want to go back to Georgia?
Objection. Relevance.
Sustained. Next question, please.
So why didn't you file a report with law enforcement on November the 20th after you alleged that you were abused?
Because I've been dealing with it for so many years, I just didn't do it. I don't see what this has anything to do with this case.
How long have you known the alleged defendant again?
Since I was 15. I'm 32 now.
Would it be fair to say that you lived in different states from the alleged defendant?
Yes, but
Oh, I'm sorry, that there was.
I was going to object and ask for clarification on the timeline there.
I'll sustain the objection, rephrase the question.
I was going to get to that, Your Honor. Would it be fair to say that during the duration of the time knowing the alleged defendant that the majority of that time you did not live in the same area or state?
Yes, off and on. I met Mr. Brooks in Reno, Nevada. I moved out of Reno, Nevada in 2017 to Atlanta, Georgia. I moved Mr. Brooks throughout. I've known him throughout, with back and forth, off and on. The whole 16 years, me and Mr. Brooks were not together, but it was off and on.
Did you guys live in the same area off and on during that time?
Objection. Asked and answered.
Sustained.
Out of the 16 years you said it was, correct?
Yes, off and on, Mr. Brooks.
How much of that time did you actually spend with the alleged defendant?
Objection. Relevance.
Sustained. Also under 906, 11 sub 1 sub C. Move on.
At the time of this alleged incident, were you and the alleged defendant in any kind of relationship?
Yes.
And were you a couple? Were you just co-parenting, or what was the nature of the relationship? Is basically
we were together. I wouldn't have came to Milwaukee, Wisconsin if I was not with him.
So it'd be fair to say that you were in a committed relationship.
Yes.
One second, I'm just going over something. Would it be fair to say? I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Go ahead. No, there was a water bottle being provided.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. How did before you came back into contact with the alleged defendant, how long had it been since you had seen the alleged defendant?
I don't know, but it was years, a couple years.
So it would be fair to say that there was a significant gap in between interactions with the alleged defendant.
Yes.
Question relevance.
Sustained, however, she provided the answer. It may stand. Next question.
So during your time, approximately how long were you staying around the alleged defendant before this incident on November 21st took place?
I don't know the exact time. I just answered your question. I don't know the exact time.
Were there any separations or gaps during that time?
Objection relevance.
Sustained.
At any time during these alleged incidents, were you with someone other than Miss Corey?
Corey and Nick the day of the 21st, and then we separated and I met back up with them.
Any time during that day were you with anyone else besides those two that you just named?
Mr. Brooks, you.
What about the alleged incident on the 20th?
I left with Miss Corey, and then she went a whole different direction, and I went to Frame Park and met up with Mr. Brooks.
Just 1 second, Your Honor. Recollection, you were not drinking on both of those days that you cite, the 20th or the 21st.
The 20th.
Hold on. Mr. Brooks, under 90611, I'm stopping this cross-examination. You've asked the same question, multiple questions, multiple times, and at this point, I'm going to declare that the opportunity to cross is now concluded.
I didn't know that was the same question, Your Honor.
Mr. Brooks, it's been asked and answered multiple times. So with that, I'm going to turn to the state to see if they have any redirect.
some brief clarification.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Ms. Patterson, after the parade incident, which took place after the video we saw, right?
Yes.
Okay. You remember meeting with Detectives Jessica Barrett and Steve Guth that night?
Yes.
Okay. And you gave a statement to them that night, correct?
Yes.
You gave a second statement to Detective Guth the next day. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk very briefly about that first statement, the night of the 21st, the night of the parade incident.
Yes.
You told them about an incident that had happened between you and the defendant on November 20th, is that right?
Yes.
And you also told them about an argument that you had with the defendant on the 21st, is that right?
Yes.
But you left out the part about any physical violence on the 21st, is that accurate?
Yes.
And then when you met with Detective Guth for your second statement,
Yes.
on the 22nd, that's when you confirmed that there had been violence with Mr. Brooks on the 21st, is that right?
Yeah, yes. Well, they seen my eye on the 21st when they came, so I did let them know about the incident on the 21st. I did. The next day, I let him know about the incident on the 20th, is what happened.
Okay. All
Yes.
right. Thank you.
To make it better. Sorry.
That's all I have, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you. You may step
Thank
down.
you, Your Honor.
All right, and any reason to keep her under subpoena from the state?
No.
From the defense?
Yes.
Did you have a subpoena for her?
To my understanding, I was supposed to.
All right, I'll take that up in a little bit. For now, I'd ask that she be maintained under the state subpoena until I can clarify that issue. All right, state have the next witness available. The thing I will ask you to do is to state your first and last names for the record and spell each.
My first name is Jeremy, spelled Jeremy. My last name is Phillips, Philipps.
Thank you. Go ahead, your witness.
Thank you. How are you employed, sir?
I'm employed with the City of Waukesha Police Department.
And how long have you worked in law enforcement?
I've been in law enforcement for a total of 14 years next month.
All with the City of Waukesha?
I have about 5 months with the City of Dodgeville Police Department in Wisconsin. The rest has been with the City of Waukesha.
All right. Sir, I'd like to direct your attention to the date of November 21 of 2021, please. Were you working that afternoon?
I was working that afternoon, yes.
What was your duty or assignment?
I was assigned a normal patrol beat, squad area 216 with the City of Waukesha on a 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. shift.
Were you aware there was a parade taking place in downtown Waukesha that afternoon?
I was aware that there was a Christmas parade downtown Waukesha.
Were you directly assigned to work the parade?
I was not assigned to work the parade.
You said you were one of the officers that was just involved in general patrol of the city that afternoon.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. I'd like to direct your attention to time around 4 o'clock or 4:30 in the afternoon. Do you recall getting dispatched to Frame Park?
I do recall being dispatched there, yes.
Do you know the exact time you were dispatched?
I believe it was 4:52 p.m. approximately there.
Okay. And where is Frame Park located?
Frame Park is rather large, but it's generally located in the downtown area off of White Rock Avenue and Baxter Avenue.
What was the nature of the complaint you were responding to?
I received a complaint to respond in emergency fashion, which means light and siren, for subjects fighting in the park with a knife allegedly involved.
Where were you coming from?
I was in the patrol area of East Moreland, roughly at East Main Street at the time, and that's where I was responding from.
Was Main Street shut down at the time for the parade?
Main Street, where I was responding from, was not, no.
Okay. I guess let me ask a better question. Were you able to travel along Main Street to get to Frame Park? From where you were located to get to where you needed to go, did you travel on Main Street?
I did not travel on Main Street to get to Frame Park.
Okay. And which direction did you come in from then?
I came in on Eastmoreland westbound to White Rock Avenue westbound.
And as you approached the area, could you see individuals associated with the parade?
Yes, I could, as I neared the vicinity.
What do you remember seeing?
As I neared the vicinity of White Rock Avenue at Baxter, directly in front of me appeared to be a unmarked patrol vehicle, silver in color, which was blocking the roadway at White Rock Avenue and Hartwell Avenue. And I believe off to the side, I could also see a marked patrol vehicle.
Could you see any floats or people participating in the parade?
At that particular time, as I arrived in the vicinity, I did not. I just saw the side of a squad car with emergency lights activated. It wasn't until a little while later I saw that there were floats and such on the other side of that patrol vehicle.
The silver colored SUV with lights, red and blue lights activated, do you know whose squad car that was?
That belonged to Sergeant Dave Warner.
Where did you go?
When I arrived to the area, initial dispatch information stated that this alleged fight involving a knife was somewhere in the vicinity of the Schutze building where the boat ramp was. Based on my training and experience of that vicinity, I know that the boat rental checkout is on the back side of the Schutze building, so that's the initial area I responded to and where my attention was drawn to.
This time, Your Honor, I'm going to ask your permission to put up Exhibit 1, which is the map of the area we've been working off of.
Permission granted. Yes.
Do you see that item in front of you, Officer Phillips, on the screen?
I do now.
Okay.
Do you want, oh, it needs to be public. Hold on. Thank you. Sure.
So that is a touch screen in front of you. If you want to draw or circle or anything like that, you may, or you can just simply talk. I'd like you to identify for us where you came in to the area.
Well, it's not really blowing up, so.
No, if you want it blown up, we can blow it up from our table. Sorry. We'll zoom in.
If you wouldn't mind, where it says Frame Park in the upper right-hand corner, that would be, looks like the vicinity that I probably responded to. I would need to see a bigger image.
Is that good?
That will suffice.
Okay.
So I responded in a direction on White Rock Avenue, coming this way. This now is Baxter Avenue, which I would have made a right-hand turn onto. And right about in this parking lot area is where the Schutze building exists. And then there would be a boardwalk and some trails behind that where the boat ramp would be.
Okay. And you drove in that area first, right?
Correct.
What were you looking for?
At that time, I was looking for anybody suspicious that may be involved in a fight, somebody carrying a weapon, somebody that might have been battered and bruised or obviously injured or in need of help.
Okay. Did you see anybody?
I did not.
Did you drive around a little bit?
I drove around in the parking lot of the Schutze building. There was another officer already on scene who, from my understanding, was already on foot in and around the vicinity of the Schutze building and advised that they could not find anybody at the Schutze building.
Okay. Officer Phillips, do you see White Rock School on this map?
I do, yes.
Could you put an X on White Rock School?
White Rock School is this elongated building right here, so we'll draw a large X through it.
Okay. And you said the roadway running parallel to White Rock to the north is Baxter?
Correct.
Okay. And Baxter is the road closest to the river. There's no other roads that run along the river there. Just like a walking path or something, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Another officer's out on foot. What do you do?
At this point, the officer came over the radio and stated he could not find anybody in the vicinity. I was listening and monitoring the radio, and at some point, what I thought was a reserve officer came over and said that they were speaking with a couple of subjects potentially involved. So at that time, I got on the radio and said I was going to attempt to meet with the caller because I didn't exactly know who this reserve officer was speaking to, how many subjects were involved, if they were actually involved or just a witness to the situation. All of that information was completely unbeknownst to me, so I decided I should probably go meet with a reserve officer and figure out who these subjects are and what the involvement was.
This reserve officer was working as part of the parade, is that right?
He was. He was in the vicinity right at Sergeant Dave Warner's location.
Okay. So did you drive down there?
I started to drive in that general direction towards White Rock Avenue in Hartwell, which is where Dave Warner and Reserve Officer Troutman would have been. Before I could fully reach that intersection, there was approximately 3 subjects off to my right-hand side on the sidewalk that were yelling, screaming, and waving, like flagging me down. The way that they were doing this, they appeared to be in distress. They appeared that they needed immediate help and certainly appeared that they needed to speak with somebody in law enforcement.
Can you put a small X on the map in the approximate area where you met up with these 3 individuals, or they were waving at you?
It would have been about halfway between Baxter and where Sergeant Warner's squad was parked. So again, this is going to be an approximation, but I'm going to put that X right about here.
Okay. So I assume you pulled over.
I pulled over, I rolled down my passenger window, and 2 of the subjects started yelling that their friend had been assaulted. So it was right at that point that they started trying to tell me that their friend had been assaulted, that information came over the radio on the primary dispatch channel that something had happened downtown and somebody had been hit. So at that point, my attention started to get a little bit diverted because hearing that on the radio is not something that just happens every day. That perks you up pretty quickly to figure out, that could be a serious injury, that could be more officers needed, something to that effect. So that took my attention away briefly. As I looked back at the subjects, they started to again say that their friend had been assaulted. So I said, hold on, let me pull over so I can get out so I can speak with you directly in person and figure out what was going on. I pulled my squad over.
Yep, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay. I pulled my squad over. I exited my driver's side of the vehicle, came around to the front of my vehicle when a short black female who was wearing what appeared to be a blue coat and blue jeans walked in the front of my patrol vehicle. There was 2 other subjects that were with her, and they started to indicate that she had been assaulted by a boyfriend of some type. I started to talk to the female who had the blue coat on, and I said, okay. I said, well, what happened? Who is this person? And she tried to downplay what happened. She didn't want to be cooperative. She made comments to the effect of nothing happened. It was just a verbal argument. I'm fine. I just want to leave.
Did you see any injury on her?
So at that time, I did. The 2 subjects that were with her tried to tell her that they said, no, Erica, you need to tell him what happened. And one of the subjects looked at me and said, officer, you need to look at her face, because she was bladed a little bit to 45 degrees away from me. So I kind of stepped and looked a little bit to the side, and I could see that her face was swollen. There was obvious bruising on it. She had an obvious black eye on one side of her face. The other eye also looked like it was swollen, but it was appear that she had facial injuries that were obvious.
You said they referred to this person by the name of Erica, is that right?
Yes.
Did you eventually ask this person for her name?
I did eventually ask for her name, yes.
What did she tell you?
She told me that her full name was Erica Patterson and that her date of birth was 10/7 of 1990.
Okay. And were you going to investigate her complaint further?
I was attempting to investigate the complaint further, yes.
And then what happened?
So as I was speaking to this woman who identified herself as Erica, along with the 2 other people that were with her who I did not identify, the calls on the radio at that point were 1078 after 1078 after 1078.
Okay, what does that mean?
So 1078 in law enforcement jargon is officer needs immediate assistance right now, all available units. As that was being called multiple times, other people were coming on the radio and stating there were subjects down in the street, then it was 10 people down, then it was 15, then it was to 30 or 40. And I had to make a decision at that point, speaking with the subjects, particularly the one who appeared to be involved and the most injured, who was not being cooperative with me, that the greater danger and the clear and present threat that was happening downtown had to draw my attention. I had to leave.
All right. The events that you've described for us so far, are those all captured on your squad video, sir?
Yes.
And at that time, in November of 2021, were you wearing a body camera?
I was not wearing a body camera at that time.
So you had a video recording device in your squad car, correct? But when you exit your squad, it's no longer recording your activities unless you can be seen on the camera in front of the squad, correct?
I have an audio recording device on my person that is synced and connected to my squad exterior windshield camera.
Okay. And that camera in your squad is stationary, is that correct, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Eventually then, do you leave the area where you're speaking with Erica and the other two individuals and go to Main Street?
I leave the area. I tell her I'm sorry that I had to go. I went down White Rock, navigated float traffic, went down East Main Street in a westbound direction, and eventually came to East Main Street at Barstow Street, where I exited my patrol vehicle.
Okay, I'm gonna ask. Oh, yes. Before I move away from Exhibit 1, could we please get a screenshot, Madam Clerk, of the drawings by Officer Phillips? And then I'm gonna ask to switch to Exhibit 6, please.
So for purposes of the record, I believe I'm at 1C for the capturing using the annotation feature.
Think we agree with that? Yes. All right, Officer, you see we've now put Exhibit 6 on your monitor. It's not yet displayed for the courtroom. Do you see Exhibit 6 on your monitor?
Yes.
Do you recognize this, or do you want us to play it for a few seconds?
I recognize what I'm looking at.
Okay. Do you believe this to be a truthful and accurate recording from your squad video that afternoon, sir?
I haven't listened to it at this point, but I would believe if it's from what I'm looking at, it would be accurate to my squad video, yes.
Okay. And you ultimately saved your squad video and submitted it to be used as evidence in this case, correct, sir?
Yes, I did.
All right. And this is a clip from that squad video?
It appears to be, yes.
Okay. Move to admit and permission to publish Exhibit 6, please.
Mr. Brooks, any position on that?
Yeah. What is the grounds? We haven't seen what's in the video.
Your objection is noted. It is overruled. Exhibit 6 is received. Permission to publish is granted.
All right, so for the record, this clip is about 6 minutes long. It exactly ends at the 5:59 mark, but we're going to play it through Officer Phillips, and I may ask Ms. Gussie to pause at times so you can kind of describe what's going on in the video, but if you can just orient us what we're looking at right now, please, before we start playing.
So this is an orientation. This would be White Rock Avenue facing a southwesterly direction that would go directly to Main Street. This right here is Baxter Street. And then what you're looking at on the right-hand corner is White Rock Elementary School.
What about way down in the distance? It looks perhaps like it's a church steeple.
So you can see what looks like the church steeple down. That's going to be Main Street down there. And particularly of note, you can see what looks to be a silver-colored car in the center of the roadway. That is Sergeant Warner's unmarked SUV patrol vehicle.
Okay, now I'd just like to make a record when he was pointing and saying this, at least initially he was using his right hand pointing to the roadway that's depicted in the still of this video image. He also said over here, or this is Baxter. You can see about midway in the frame a street sign, and there's a street that intersects. That's where